Aloha everybody, welcome aboard. I'm Greg Latham and I would like to take the opportunity to point out some of our safety features. The doors are now emergency exits. Silver handles go down to open, and in the event of an emergency dawn, that plastic guard by your knee comes off that orange knob. Pulling up removes the door, so please, only with my instructions. First aid kit and survival pack are both under the rear seat, and there's a fire extinguisher on the right side of mine. Comes out of the bracket, pull the pin and squeeze for the operational use. You also have briefing cards behind your head in the back seat, and up front here on the console, and in the unlikelihood of feeling queasy, there are airbags. First part of the flight, they're free. If you're susceptible to air sickness, I would recommend not chewing gum. Seatbelt should be securely fastened, and please, no smoking. Anybody's first time in a helicopter? Besides myself. Just kidding, Wendy.
My grandma and your grandma sitting by the fire. My grandma said to your grandma, I'm gonna set your flag on fire. Talking about henna, henna, kawaii, chicken mofino, anane, chicken mofinane. Look at my king all dressed in red. Hi, kawaii, but your $5, he'll kill you dead. Chicken mofinane, talking about henna, henna, kawaii, chicken mofino, anane.
Kanaha Beach coming up off the nose, windsurfing. This is where the beginners start out. As the skill level increases, they move progressively up the shoreline to the east until they get to Hohokipa. A couple times a year, that's where the big bucks are made. Competition and experts from around the world compete. We're flying an A-Star, manufactured in France and built in Texas, and occasionally I'll be talking with other aircraft, letting them know what a great time we're having, and in particular where exactly we're having it. It's a form of flight following. Good volume for everybody. Coming up on the left, the Twin Cities of Wailuku and Kahului. Wailuku in the distance is the county seat for Maui, Lanai, and Molokai, and Kahului, a city of commerce.
See that guy all dressed in green? Kawaii, he's not a man, he's a love machine. Chicken mofinane, talking about henna, henna, kawaii, chicken mofino, anane, chicken mofinane, talking about henna, henna, kawaii, chicken mofino, anane, chicken mofinane, chicken mofinane. Chicken mofinane, 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 chicken mofinane.
On the foothills on the left are macadamia nut trees, first brought to the island from Queensland in 1860. It takes about 7 years for those young trees to begin to yield fruit, and they only last about 7 seconds after being layered with chocolate, at least around my household. The Pacific Ocean covers about 1/3 of the Earth's surface, and there's about 10,000 islands located here. The Hawaiian chain has 132 of those islands, and they stretch about 1,600 miles. The oldest is Kauai. The youngest is Hawaii. Of the 8 major islands that are inhabited, Kauai is the oldest, and each of the major islands is represented by a stripe on the Hawaiian flag. The large rock formation coming up here on the left is called Kahakaloa, nicknamed Little Gibraltar by the islanders that reside at the base of the formation in a village of the same name, Kahakaloa. Coming up is the Honokahau Valley. This is the Honokahau Valley, portions of which Jurassic Park were filmed. Filmmakers came back last year and we did the sequel, Lost World, over on Kauai and Oahu. This month we've got a ship in Kauai once again with Harrison Ford, 7 days and nights. He just got his airplane license, and that enthusiasm has moved into the movie industry. Apparently it's about an airplane crash. Where's everybody from? West Covina? All right. You with them? Virginia. Boy, a long way for a beach. Honeymoon? All right. Congratulations and best wishes. So you got as far away from your in-laws as you could. Just kidding. Dodgers are playing at 2 o'clock today. Did you see that on the TV? I got the VCR going. Understand they lost yesterday? 8th inning lose. Oh, that was sickening. This here on the right is actually the waterfall that was used in Jurassic Park in the opening scenes of the motion picture. However, if I had been Spielberg, I would have elected for the one in the back. It's the highest on the island, and we'll be getting a closer look as we get a little closer. Those early Polynesians brought with them chicken dogs and pigs, coconut, breadfruit, taro plant, just to name a few of over 24 plants, most of them with multi-uses, limited amount of space on the canoes for people, plants, and water, so they were selective. Above us here on the left is the Aki Crater, the holy ground where the ancient kahunas or high priests used to perform their spiritual rituals. Little known fact that on the top of the Aki Crater are silver swords, the island's rarest plant, more commonly found in Haleakala. They're also endemic to the island. They were brought here without the help of humans and can be found nowhere else in the world. They bloom once in their life with a time span between 9 and 14 and occasionally 20 years. And once they bloom, the silver swords die. Those early Polynesians brought with them one of the most complex systems of rules and regulation governing any society up until that time, the kapu system, with a list of penalties that was quite a bit shorter. In fact, there was only one. If you broke a rule or a kapu, you were simply killed. Unless, of course, you could outrun your pursuers and make it into the cities of refuge. Then, of course, all sins were forgiven and given a week or so to regain your strength and catch your breath. You were then welcomed back into society. And it was a good bet you weren't going to break any more rules. Incidentally, coming up ahead are the grove and North Fork pine, planted by the early explorers, so they'd have an ample supply of masts for their tall ships. It was a habit they practiced throughout their travels. Along the shoreline are the pineapple fields owned by the Maui Land and Pineapple Company. They have an agreement with a Mormon church. High school students out of the state of Utah come over in the summer months and help with the harvesting. Land and Pineapple Company also have an interest in the Kapalua Hotel and Resort, coming up on the left. That large structure on the shoreline is the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. And there's directly ahead, this bay is Honolulu. It's a favorite among the surfers during the south swell, as it appears we have today. However, I think we've got pretty good waves all along the shores, and I think a little more easier access on the north side. In fact, I do see some cars over here on the right. A bigger break. It's also good snorkeling down in this area. Sometimes the boats use this as an alternate, coming out of Kaanapali and Lahaina.
I'll feel your evening breeze tonight. Molokai, I'm longing for your laughter. Gaze upon your silent shores, reminisce the sweet embrace of ginger.
Society back in the early days were divided into 4 classes. The Alihi was royalty, the Kahunas were the high priests, teachers, and keepers of the secrets. Common man was Maka'aina, and the lower class was the Kaua. During a brief period of time in the Hawaiian history, when human sacrificing did take place, in honor of the war god Ku, it was usually from the lower class that selections were made. It was also the lower classes that you could never rise above. Once you were born there, you stayed. Some of the other divisions you could move up depending on your military prowess, good looks, and of course who you married.
And it's been so long since
Or who you didn't marry.
I miss the morning sunrise of the countryside, and I've gone so far to find my way.
The average temperature of the water around the islands is 76 degrees, and most of the plant and animals in the Pacific Ocean are similar to those found in the tropical Indian Ocean. These islands are considered the largest landmass of mountains in the world. Haleakala goes up to 10,023 feet, and if you have a chance, it's definitely worth the drive. A little under 2 hours, and not necessarily for the sunrise. Usually later in the day, the sun comes into the western sky and will highlight the colors. And from the vantage point of the observation area, that's to your advantage. Over on the big island of Hawaii, the youngest, 500,000 years old, you've got 2 that reach almost 14,000. Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa. However, these islands actually drop down below the surface of the ocean another 18,000 feet, over 3 miles. And that's where they get that distinction of being large landmass mountains.
I feel your evening breeze tonight. Molokai, I'm longing for your laughter. I'll gaze upon your silent shores, reminisce the sweet embrace of ginger. And as New York City was closing in, I long for the touch of an island. Molokai, Molokai, sweet home.
The island of Molokai, 38 miles long, 10 miles wide. It was first formed by the eruption of 3 volcanoes. Population on the island is about 7,000, contrasting greatly with Oahu, which last count was over 850. Come up just off the nose is the Elephant Rock, as it appears lying on its side. So the wildlife on the island include the axis deer, wild goats, dogs, and pigs. Coming up is the Murphy Ranch. In 1985, 11 of their cattle came down with bovine tuberculosis. The entire herd on the island had to be destroyed. They numbered over 11,000. Quarantine went into effect for 6 years, and in 91 they began bringing the herds back. We are also east of the international date line, so most of the storms with winds above 74 miles per hour are called hurricanes. West of the date line are typhoons. However, there's one other storm system that we are concerned with here in the islands, and those are caused by seismic disorders, or earthquakes. They're called tsunamis. They can travel 500 miles an hour and reach great heights. In the middle of the 40s, 1940, an earthquake struck Alaska, and the result was a 50-foot wave, devastating the community coming up on the left. This is Cape Olava, and there were over 3,000 residents who were found instantly homeless. Today, there's only about 12 families that continue to reside in the Cape Olava area. This area was also used by King Kamehameha's troops in his unification efforts to bring the islands under his rule. After conquering Maui, he was set to go to Oahu next. After Oahu fell, the king of Niihau and Kauai decided he would cede his territories to the kingdom, making King Kamehameha the first to be head honcho for the entire Hawaiian 8 major islands. In the back of the valley are waterfalls. The one just coming into view is called Mo'o, named after the giant sea lizard that supposedly lives in the region. Legend has it that children would throw tea leaves into the pools, and only if it floated was it safe to swim. These are the most spectacular year-round waterfalls on the island. How's everybody doing? Okay, the airbags are now $10. Just kidding. Just a little joke, Tammy. Just a little joke. The North Shore Cliffs of Molokai. This is the highest year-round waterfall on the island, Papalaua. Elevation is 1,250 feet. Second highest waterfall in the world, next to Angel Falls in Venezuela. Coming up on the left, its elevation is 1,750 feet. And today, it's just a little more than a trickle. On the left. The Wailau Valley. Those lighter colored trees are kukui nut. They were used by the ancient Hawaiians in hollowed out bamboo poles. They'd light the nut and use it as a torch, enabling them to see in the darkness. When polished and strung around their neck, kukui nuts are often used in the form of adornment. The most successful homesteads coming up here on the left, just the other side of the ridge. Joyce Kiona and her 6 boys carried wood 28 miles to build their home, and they have been featured in National Geographic on a number of occasions. Bet it's hard to check their power meter. Large rock formation coming up just off the nose is Mokapu, and it means the turtle. Along the shoreline ahead is Father Damien's church, the Belgian priest who spent 16 years of his life nurturing the people who were stricken with the dreaded disease of leprosy. The disease first brought to the island from the Chinese workers, and when the king discovered the devastating effect it had on his people, more out of ignorance than anything else, anybody with symptoms was commanded to be brought here. The seas were rough. People were literally pushed overboard and made to swim ashore. The original colony was located directly below. With the introduction of sulfur drugs, the disease in the area is now passive. The colony has been relocated to Kalapapa on the other side of the peninsula. There's about 70 former patients and an equal number of state workers that maintain the facilities. Father Damien's burial site is on the edge of the cinder cone in the middle of the peninsula. TriStar Motion Pictures is now doing a motion picture on the life and times of Father Damien. The executive producer in the leading role is going to Robin Williams. The cemetery here on the left probably represents only 1/10 of the lives that were lost here. Nice rainbow just off the nose. They go full circle. The koa tree used to stand side by side with the fragrant sandalwood. It was traded with China in exchange for the axis deer, and the two trees would actually feed off the parasites of each other. It was long hours, strenuous work, and come to be hated by the Hawaiians, and in 1825 was replaced by resupplying the whaling vessels as a new source of income for the islanders. The elders actually pulled out the samplings of the sandalwood to ensure that their children and grandchildren would never have to toil in that harvesting industry again. Unfortunately, this also meant the demise of the koa forest, which are also endemic to the islands. The Pelekunu Valley. This is the back of the Wailau. Wailau means 600 waterfalls. So I've heard. And there are also over 160 variety of ferns, 30 of which are also endemic to the island. to the valley for that matter. Along the shoreline are the Hawaiian fish ponds, supposedly built by Minahunis. Little people like leprechauns that only come out at night, and nobody ever sees them. Fish ponds are strategically located so the freshwater runoff from the hillside will blend with the salt water, and it creates a favorable environment for the mullet, which was the Hawaiians' favorite. Where the fish ponds work, the rocks are piled up on top of each other, and the small openings between will allow the smaller fish to swim into the ponds. As they eat, grow, and get larger, they're no longer able to get out. However, if the Hawaiian royalty does not like the taste of your fish, you are commanded to take your wall down and start over. Oh, by the way, no rock could be used twice. Shorelines in Hawaii used to be peppered with the fish ponds. Today, this shore supports only about 8 or 9. Over on the right is the Pineapple Island of Lanai. It was owned by Dole up until a few years ago and then sold to the Murdoch Corporation, $4.8 billion. Dole has now moved to the Philippines, where operational cost for raising pineapple is considerably less. When King Kamehameha was lying on his deathbed in 1819, he appointed his favorite wife, Queen Kahahumanu, as ruling minister to assist his son, who was inheriting the throne. Within a year, New England missionaries began arriving, and with her support and help, 20 years later, 85% of the Hawaiians could read and write. King Kamehameha II and his wife in 1824, while touring Europe, contracted the disease of measles, and both died in London. The kingdom then was passed on to the King Kamehameha III. He was 12 at the time, and the brother of King Kamehameha II. So the Queen continued as ruling minister, assisting him. Historians mark the arrival of civilization, however, with Captain Cook's landing on Kauai. It was January 1778, at the beginning of the Makahiki Festival. It was in praise of the agricultural god Lono. When the Hawaiians woke and discovered the huge masted ships anchored in their bay, they naturally assumed Lono had returned to partake in the festivities. Cook, being a typical male, did nothing to dispel those misconceptions. Yeah, right, I'm a god. What do you got for me? Up until that time, the Hawaiians were familiar with only wood, stone, shells, plants, bone, teeth, bird feathers, and human hair. They had never before come across nails, and now considered it a gift of the gods. And they really didn't care much how they got it. After Cook left Kauai, bypassing Maui, he went to the Big Island. Of course, word of Lono's return and the gift of nails preceded him. First chance the Hawaiians got, they stole one of his lifeboats, set it on fire, and collected the nails. When Cook discovered the missing lifeboat, he angrily came ashore. A scuffle ensued, and Cook sustained minor injuries. However, when the Hawaiians discovered the captain was bleeding, their god concept of him went out the window. And that, of course, was the last day Cook did any exploration. So if you're going to play God, don't play an Hawaiian one. Two of those sailors continued to help King Kamehameha in military advisories, showed him how to mount the cannons on the canoes, and made him not only the fiercest warrior, but now the most powerful king. After murdering his uncle, settling on Hawaii, the Big Island, and conquering it, he then set off for Maui. The Battle of Iao, the island of Maui, fell into King Kamehameha's hands, and the rest is history. Straight up off the nose, the Kaanapali Beach resorts. From the Hyatt Regency down to the Black Rock Formation, where the newly remodeled Sheraton can be found. You do cliff diving off the Black Rock around sunset, and it's excellent snorkeling throughout the day. The Sheraton's the oldest hotel on the island, and now the newest remodel. It was not uncommon in the middle of the 1800s in the channel ahead to see 300 to 500 ships moored. Those were the whaling vessels that would search for sperm whale found in waters further south and would come to Lahaina for rest and recreation. Lahaina was the capital of Hawaii and the home of King Kamehameha and his descendants. Translated, it means the cruel sun, because the blockage of wind by the West Maui's. Temperatures are normally higher on this side. Also, The oldest school west of the Rockies, halfway up the hill. On the left, Lahaina Luna High School, 1831. The West Maui's go up to 5,700 feet. However, they used to go up another 3,000 more. With the constant rain and the erosion factor, the top of the mountain has been removed, and these valleys have actually been carved out through the sculpturing of nature. The king would draw a line down the top of these mountains to the shore, and in pie sections he created districts. Each valley represented a different extended family called the Ohana. Farmers up on the hillside would grow the crops, and fishermen along the shore would do the catching. At the time that Cook landed in Kauai, in Waimea, there were approximately 300,000 folks residing in the islands. These valleys were all populated at that time. The first official census, however, showed a decline in 1850 to only 85,000. 25 years later, the number was further reduced to 54,000. The main reason for the decline in the Hawaiian nation was based on Western diseases. Influenza, measles, cholera, and whooping cough were at the top of the list. This is Laniapoko on the left. You'll notice that when you're driving along the shores that a lot of the beaches' names also correspond with the valleys above. It's part of that ancient system. We're going to count a little bit of turbulence coming over these ridges. Let me know if anybody feels a little queasy. I'll try to avoid. You all right? Just coming up is Olawalu. This valley was once famous for the taro plant. Its root is used in the making of poi. Today, those again are the kukui nut or the candle nut trees. Taro more famous now on the Kenai Peninsula on the way to Hana. Each year they have their annual festival in the spring. Because of the high value of land for raising crops and also the difficulty in digging into the hard lava rock, there are caves in the back of these valleys that became the burial sites for the deceased family members. Coming up is the valley of Ukemahami. This is one of the biggest examples of the contrary differences between regional weather patterns. Here in the back of the valley, lush green rainforest. And in the front, arid, dry desert. Some goats here on the left. They actually built a fence line around the top of the crater to keep the goats out from eating the foliage. I mentioned the silver swords earlier. Over on the right, the bombing target of Kahoholawe was used by the Navy since World War II, and in the process now of taking bids for the cleanup effort. The project should begin early the first part of next year and run maybe 5 up to 10 years, clearing the spent ordnance from the soil. Once completed, the island will be returned to the Hawaiians and traditional villages will be once again established. The island of Maui is 48 miles long and 23 miles wide. It was first formed by the eruption of 2 volcanoes, and the lava flows joined together on the left and now support the largest sugarcane plantation throughout Hawaii, belonging to C&H. Maui Harbor just off the nose, where the boats are moored to go to Molokini on a regular basis. Horseshoe Syndicone Island off the right. It's one of the best snorkeling areas around. Also, the construction site down here by the harbor is going to be an underground aquarium, something to look forward to on your next visit. Come back on your anniversary, Curtis. Yes, honey, I can remember when we got married. They didn't even have fish in the aquarium. Kihei and Wailea Shoreline over on the right. Some of the best beaches can be found over on this side. Kihei is where I live, and it's particularly nice around sunset. There are numerous reservoirs on the Central Valley floor, all interconnected by a series of aqueducts designed to bring water from the rainforest, so it'll be more beneficial in the growing of crops. 1 ton of water will grow 9 pounds, and after refining it becomes only 1 pound of sugar. It takes about 18 to 22 months before they harvest, and then they'll light the fields on fire. Incidentally, the cane goes to California for the refining process. Like where else? Boy, Haleakala Crater over here on the right, 10,023 feet in height. Looks a little cloudy up there today. think you made the right choice on the tour you took. Rainbows and all. Looks like we got drag racing taking place over here on the right if you're looking for something to do after the flight. Maybe we ought to go down there and give them a little run for their money. Man, they always want to go faster, don't they? Normally I get women that want to know how high we are. The men always ask how fast. But I did once, and I don't know how many years, a woman did ask me how fast I was going. Turned out, I found out later in the flight, you guessed it, she was from Indianapolis. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for flying with us today. This has certainly been my pleasure having you aboard. When you get back, if you would please sign our guest book. Your comments can help improve our product. And if you enjoyed the flight, my name is Greg, and if not, you can put Don. Also, if you have friends or relatives coming to the island, I'd certainly appreciate you doing me a favor. Please mention Blue Hawaiian. I'm more than happy to share the island with them. Population on the island is 117,000. Last year's census, and it reported about 67,000 of those gainfully employed. When I first came to the island in '83, that was about the total number of people living here, and it's nice to know they all finally got jobs. Nene Sugar Mill coming up on the left, one of three still operating on the island. Paia and Lahaina, all part of the C&H family. Also, if you're looking for some other activity, maybe not today, but another, over here on the left, that's the Iao Valley. So right now it's filled with clouds, and I wasn't able to take you up there, but it's the only valley with a road. There are a botanical garden, picnic areas, and some great hiking trails. Swing by Safeway, pick up yourself a six-pack of your favorite and a lunch, and you're there. Take a bathing suit and towel. On behalf of our staff, we hope you enjoy your continuance here on the island, and when you decide to return home, have a safe and pleasant journey. Aloha, everybody, and mahalo. Nui loa. Mahalo, nui loa. Don, I'm going to need that headset for the next flight. You're going to have to get your souvenirs inside.